What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're continuing our series of Birthright faction reviews here, starting off with the southern coast. We're getting towards the end here. So this is the last sort of territory with like a physical location, and this one is actually one of the not available for PC countries, if we can call the Spiderfell a country, more like just a territory. So in most cases, these represent sort of almost always like evil NPCs, and some of these are sort of like the big, sort of in many cases ancient sort of bad guys of various flavors here that go pretty deep into the backstory, but also sort of represent often a very serious threat on different levels for nearby PC kingdoms. So the Spiderfell, and there's much more information on that. We'll cover a separate video where we look at the spider itself as this monster, or Onshalian, as it's called. These old monsters or creatures now that have inherited the evil god Azrai's bloodline, going back a couple thousand years to this Battle of Deismar. And then there's some more information on it as well in the Blood Enemies book, which was a supplement that came out afterwards, covering a lot of these major monsters here, but we'll cover that in a whole separate series. So the territory itself, it's just a single territory and pretty much borders most of the nations of the southern coast, or is very close to it, and even some in the Heartlands. Also, the Player's Guide to Endir also has some extra information in there, so we'll cover that in a separate video as well. Nonetheless, anyway, one single province here. There's no civilization to speak of, so it's basically pretty much untapped forest land, so there's a lot of magical potential there, and it is listed that Cain, the wizard Cain, does control some sort of source there, but there's no levels indicated. There's certainly no temples or guilds, and basically what law there is in that sense. Basically, the spider controls anything and everything in that territory. And even though there's no guild activity, as it mentions in the description here, there's basically, the wood of this territory is prized all over for just the quality, and so there is some unofficial logging, basically at great personal risk for those who do try to do that, and not everybody gets out alive, essentially. So the regent here, the spider, one of the original Onshalian, rules the wood called the Spiderfell. Locals say the creature becomes aware of any intrusions into the forest, and it can see through the eyes of spiders in the woods. So popular folklore also has it that it can basically sort of put itself into the bodies of any spiders and see through them, essentially, to know what's going on anywhere and everywhere, which is pretty creepy, and could be great in an adventure. So, and again, whether you're actually running a nearby country and have to deal with it on like that kind of level as a ruler, or actually going adventuring there as a party, or some sort of combination of that, this is a great place to really play up some of these things here. Every once in a while, though, and this is where it really becomes a threat, especially for nearby countries, it does send out armies in sort of a just random pattern. It just attacks at random, essentially. So most people do leave a garrison if they're bordering it, just to at least slow down and maybe repel any of these random attacks. So that being said, if your effort was to ever try and take it over, certainly you would gain some fame for eliminating one of these major evils, but it would certainly require a heavy investment, and you'd probably want to like deforest a large chunk of it just to take away some of the spider's power and sort of not get caught up in some of the other dangers that it presents. But that's one way of going about it. And that being said, fighting it itself, you would certainly want to be well prepared and be fairly high level with several similarly high level party members. So again, we'll talk about the spider separately in detail and its history and all that on its own character sheet that we have from the main box set. As far as like actual lieutenants or anything, there's practically nothing known about it, so it's essentially an open sandbox for the DM to really play up how that works. The spider originally was like a goblin way back when, so you could have some sort of combination of goblins or other sort of sentient spiders, or like goblin spider hybrids or something. So there's all kinds of potential there. The territory itself is basically between the Heartlands and the southern coasts. There's just the province itself, even though it's not a true province, it's just that actual territory. It is one of the darkest forests this side of Vosgard, which again is that sort of northeastern Russia like territory. Both physically and spiritually, the locals rightly fear this area, where the very land and climate grow warped under the creature's dreadful might. Oh man, can't read today. A heavy gray cloud basically is perpetually over the Spiderfell, which occasionally causes some weather distortions here. And basically, once you're in there, you're kind of in its own separate world. There's not much in the way of light that really penetrates through. So another just very real danger there. So strains of shrubs that aren't entirely normal have taken their place. So it's, there's all kinds of other magical and weird things going on here. So again, just leave it up to the DM's imagination there to really fill the players with a sense of dread if they're in there in danger. The berries that grow on these bushes, so there's basically all kinds of poisonous bushes. So basically everything in here is trying to kill you, whether it's the actual spider itself, any of the other creatures that inhabit it, certainly all the various other sized spiders in there, and then the plants, the flora and fauna essentially as well. So as befits its name, this domain crawls with spiders, so range from the size of a child's fingernail to that of a small pony, which is frightening to contemplate there. And almost all are venomous. The most dangerous of all are the head-sized, let's let that sink in, head-sized albino spiders who prey on humans. So in addition to its denizens, anyone fool enough to travel in there would best be aware of the hazards of the terrain itself. So there's all kinds of deadfalls and quicksand on top of, keeping an eye out for all these crazy spiders and poisonous berries and all this other stuff. What little there is in the way of game trails could easily just lead you into a trap. So, think of some of the forest scenes and things like Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, where it's just like deep and dark forest, but here just like play that up a million times with spiders of all kinds, and just everything is out to kill you, basically. So that being said, despite these dangers and the ever-present threat of the Spiderfell is still an excellent source of timber. In fact, the lumber is prized by craftsmen and artisans all across Anywhere. And, one last final warning here. Of those who brave the Spiderfell in search of the wood, not everyone makes it back. So lots of potential adventure hooks there, whether you're trying... So continuing on here, so, you have different adventure hooks, things to contemplate there. So whether you're trying to capture spiders and maybe get some rare antidotes and stuff created, or just other wizards that might be interested in pieces or components or whatever, there's lots of adventure hooks. That being said, if you were maybe more noble-minded or just want to do some major good and sort of have a major accomplishment to sort of help sort of raise your claim to the Iron Throne, and just as someone who can start taking care of some of these major evils in the world, finding a way to sort of permanently deal with the spider and basically take over the territory would certainly lend itself to many various bonuses, although the risks are going to be extremely high. Again, we'll see more of that when we talk about the monster itself. Depending on how this works in the campaign that you may be playing and what the DM's sort of mindset is here, but this might require anything from some sort of prolonged military invasion or campaign, or almost siege of the Spiderfell, or provoking it into sending out its armies just so that they can be annihilated, then eventually hunting it down and killing it, which would probably start to sort of get rid of its evil influence, and then sort of the land would hopefully heal itself and get rid of some of the crazy magical or unnatural dangers here. So there's lots of little things to consider there, but could be interesting. And it may require, in fact, some of the other neighboring countries to sort of ally with you and commit to a plan like that, although they'll probably want a piece of the credit or some sort of payoff as well for just provoking such a dangerous monster. But again, the payoff there could be huge, and sort of maybe it might be like the pinnacle of a campaign in the southern coast, just to show that you can get other countries allied together towards a bigger cause, and then also taking out one of the major evils, at least in this part of the world. But doing so will likely bring you to the attention of the Gorgon, which we'll cover in a whole separate video. He's like the big bad, of course, of the setting. So, anyone who's reached the level where they can take out the spider would certainly draw his attention, and he would, even though he's pretty far distant geographically, he would certainly find ways to keep some tabs on you, and may even send some assassins to maybe try and deal with you. So, but nonetheless, it presents an interesting opportunity and danger for all those on the southern coast, even Arenway and potentially Miras, which are the most distant of the southern coast nations, and just as kind of like a again, like a sandbox for the DM to really decide, when things are getting a little bit too boring or crazy. This can be something that affects not just one country, but potentially all of them at once, and can shift some things unexpectedly for players. So it's always a great sort of thing to keep in the back pocket there, and something that all the players playing in the southern coast and parts of the Heartlands too do have to be aware of. So that basically covers the Spiderfell. Like I said, we'll have more supplemental things on that from some of the other products that were released for the game, so stay tuned for that. We'll once we get to that point, we'll try and link all the videos together for you guys, just as a help there. But let us know what you think. For those who've played Birthright, whether you've been near the Spiderfell, have you how has that worked in your campaigns? Have you ever actually managed to kill it, whether just as adventurers or as part of like being a ruler for a country? Let us know in the comments, guys. Be happy to hear from you. We'll talk about it. Thanks so much again for stopping by. Really do appreciate you guys. Take care.